Hi there, it's Beauty Junkie. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm getting into comparison swatches of the Mothership X Moonlit Seduction palette. I have the other 9 Motherships. I did a whole bunch of swatches. I have a rash on my arm now, and I'm going to go through my list of the 9 comparable shades that I found in the other Mothership palettes. Also, bonus, I'm going to do another eye look from this palette. If you didn't catch my first impressions review video, I did a review, swatches, application. Check out that video, I'll link it below. But we're gonna get into focusing strictly on comparisons today. Oh man, it was a lot of work. Now that she has 10 palettes, it's like, oh, I feel like I have to do separate videos now when I compare because it takes some time. It took me over an hour to go through all of them and get all the glitter off my arms. But it was fun. It's always fun to look at Pat's palettes and swatch them. I always have a good time. But let's get into the details of what I found to be comparable. So out of the 9 other palettes, I found 4 other palettes with comparable shades. 2 shades from the first palette, Subliminal, 2 shades from the 4th palette, 4 shades from the 6th palette, and 1 shade from the 7th. So let's start with throwing up the swatches that I found comparable shades to of this Moonlit Seduction palette. I'm going to keep those up for reference, and then I'm going to show you guys each palette as we go. So starting with the first palette, Subliminal, the 2 shades I found to be somewhat comparable. So the VR Sextasy, which is probably the standout shade in the Moonlit Seduction, I found VR Violet in the Subliminal palette, the very first palette, to be the closest dupe. It's not exact though, but in the same playing field, I would say there's a bit more redness in Moonlit Seduction's VR Sextasy. The second shade in this palette is, I believe it's called Extreme Depth or just Depth. I just wrote down Depth though. This is that brown matte shade, and no, it's not an exciting match to find, but I found it to be pretty close. The 4th one, this is probably the most different palette out of all of Pat's Motherships because it's all sort of a metallic formula, and it did come out in a gold special edition. 2 shades from here, and I think Divine Mink and Enigma match Platinum Dusk from Moonlit Seduction. Now, it's probably a mix between the 2 shades, Divine Mink and Enigma, that are really close, but this one by itself wasn't really an exact dupe, and this one by itself wasn't really an exact dupe, but they're pretty much on the same playing field with Mint Platinum Dusk. That was the closest I could find, honestly, looking at all the palettes. It's kind of a taupey, cool toned kind of color. A little bit odd. The next palette had the most comparable shades. This is the 6th palette. A lot of shades from here that are comparable to shades in this palette. The ones that match are pretty neutral, so it makes sense that they're pretty close. They're not like the standout shades that match, so take it with a grain of salt. Let's start with the first one. Comparing to Extreme Nocturne, the matte brown shade, Extreme Dusk, is very close. A dark brown comparing to a dark brown. It's not too surprising that we found a color to match this, another color. The next one is Plum Cabaret. I actually thought there would be more, felt like when I tried this, that there would be some more similar shades to this, but the closest one I found is Vermilion Venom. And Vermilion Venom is definitely more red, but it was the closest I could find. So not quite the same tone, but similar enough. The next one is Skin Intense Glow. This is the light shimmer shade that I found to be the lightest of all of Pat's Motherships. And that turned out to be true. This is truly the lightest of all of them, but the closest I could get is from this palette, which is Skin Show Moon Glow. It's not exact. The shimmer, I think, in the bright light looks very similar, but when you kind of turn out of the light, more in the shadows, the color isn't really the same. So it's a close enough, but not a super great match. The next one is Bronze Devotion, and this is a color that I found another match to in a different palette, but in this palette it's Bronze Eclipse. Now bronze isn't too surprising that I found matches for, because there's different tones of bronze, but the one in this one was pretty close, Bronze Eclipse. So those are the 4 from the 6th Mothership that I found. And you guys can see, like, yeah, they're neutrals. Of course you found a dupe for them. The last palette I found a similar color for is Divine Rose, is the original Divine Rose palette. This is the 7th palette. And the color I found to be similar is Sable Bronze. And this was another match for Bronze Devotion. So the bronze palette from here, this one I thought would be matched to one of the plummy shades, but it's not really. So that's it for the matches. So out of all the palettes, I found 9 shades that are pretty similar to several shades in here. Let's see, 1, 2. So out of 6 shades out of here, I found comparisons to. That still leaves 4 shades that I couldn't find dupes for. So think about it that way. If you have the 6th Mothership palette, you have 4 shades that are already similar, maybe you don't need this, but if you're really excited about the shades that are different, then it might be worth picking up. Just food for thought. I mean, comparisons are great, but because it tells you whether or not it's gonna be worth it. Is the shade really gonna be that different to you that you need this palette? Stuff that I think is helpful for you guys to know. Some of these shades were not easy to find close matches to. Could not find anything for this, nothing for this, nothing for this. And this shade I couldn't really find a good match for either. So I mean, that's pretty good, right? But of course you want no repeats with any palette that comes from a brand, or you don't want a lot of similar shades showing up over and over again. But you have to remember, most people are not going to have all of these palettes, so it's okay to have some neutral shades repeating. I think though Pat McGrath is a little bit different. A lot of people collect her palettes. Big fans of hers are going to buy every palette, so we do get disappointed when we see similar shades show up again, especially like we found 2 other colors from her palettes that are very close to this kind of boring dark brown matte shade. It's not something I'm super excited to see, but at least it's not a black. Anyway, so that's that on the swatches. I'm gonna go ahead and repeat everything I just said and just kind of do like side-by-sides, close-ups, so you guys can get a whole montage of all the comparisons. If you guys like skipping, not hear me talk about things, don't like my commentary, that section is gonna be for you. Alright, so I'm going to do an eye look using different colors than I used last time. And this time it's going to be a little bit more subdued, a little bit more neutral. Of course it's going to have glitter because 5 of these shades have glitter. But it's going to be a different vibe going on than last time. Where I used like VR Sexy was the star of the show. Right, I'm going to use Rosewood Romantique, our lightest matte shade, a little bit red toned here. And start with this guy first. I do have mascara on in case you guys are curious. And I'm honestly surprised there isn't a good match to this color. But you know, I'm always excited to see original colors come from a brand. Oh, I forgot to mention, I also looked at last year's the 2021 holiday palette. Not find anything close from that one either, so. All right. Rosewood Romantique is in the crease. I'm torn between Platinum Dusk and Blitz Venus. I'm really tempted to go something peachy to go with this rosewood color. I'm gonna go in with Blitz Venus, and I'm gonna use my finger because I just tried to use a brush and that did not pick up much. So going on here, this is such a beautiful shiny shade, but it's so much fallout just now. Okay. See how much glitter came off there? I'm gonna have to do cleanup to prevent that on the other side. I'm gonna use the artistry wand from Pat's. I used this last time and it seemed to help. I'm gonna put this on the lid. This is like a tacky, slightly tacky eye primer, and I'm gonna try this again. Much less fallout with that wand. For sure doesn't mean I don't need to touch up, but a lot less fallout. That is such a pretty glitter. Really goes well with that matte shade. Just that touch of peachy light is so pretty. Okay, underneath the eye, I'm gonna take Bronze Devotion. There is Bronze Devotion underneath the eye. That's a bit of a fun contrast from the top of the lid. And for inner corner, I'm going to use my favorite Skin Intense Glow. This light, shimmery, fun time. Just really brighten it up. Honestly, you could probably use this as a highlighter on the cheeks and it would be magnificent, and I might try that. Okay, so to make this a little more smoky on the outer edge, I'm gonna use Extreme Nocturne, our boring matte brown, and make this a little more exciting. Alright, so I'm gonna do a bit of concealer, clean up, add some more mascara, put on some lips, a little bit of highlighter, and I will be back. All right, it did a bit of a touch up under the eyes. I added some lipstick. This is the Pat McGrath Matte Trance in Beautiful Stranger, and I wanted to add a highlight. The blush I use is one of the new Divine Blush Duos, Paradise Glow. So a little bit of peachiness here. A little bit of a corally, I don't know how to describe this lip color. And so the highlight, I'm going to use the inner corner shade, which is Skin Intense Glow. This is probably going to be way too much. That is okay. A little bit on the cheeks. This is going to be more of a platinum, shiny moment. I think it's pretty. Ooh, that does have some really high shine. Okay, I'm gonna show you some close-up photos and then I'll give you my final thoughts on all the comparisons and this look. All right, so that is the final look. I would call this look like everyday glam. I mean, it's a lot more wearable than my first look, but it does have a lot of glitter and shine and a little bit of smoke and drama, and I'm enjoying it. I think it's really wearable, and it's gonna go with a lot of neutral matte lip colors. I think this palette is pretty versatile, but is it worth getting? I think the fact that I could find 9 similar shades in other palettes means that this palette is probably something you don't need to rush out and get. That being said, if you are not an avid collector of Pat McGrath, you do not have these other palettes, the shades in this palette really appeal to you, just get the one palette and you don't have to get the other 4 that match. You know what I mean? So, and there's multiple matches of the same color that I found. Like the bronze color, there's multiple matches. I mean, I still think this palette's really pretty, but it's not something you need to go out, jump on getting. These colors are not completely new. Some of them are, I could not find dupes for. So like these shades up in here, could not find similar shades to. If these really appeal to you, then maybe this palette's worth it to you, but I would take a good think on it before running out and picking it up at full price. The colors are pretty, the looks of it, this is the second look I created. I really like it. The quality is there. Now some of the glitter formulas are not the same as they used to be. I think I mentioned that in my previous video. They're not all big July special shades anymore. One of them is, but not all of them, which is sad. But as I mentioned in the previous video, I'm sure costs are going up, but the price of this palette has remained the same, so they're changing the formula to compensate. That's just my guess. I don't know for sure. I do not work there. I bought this palette myself. But yeah, that's it. Those are my thoughts on the comparisons. Let me know. You guys still considering picking this up? Are you over Pat McGrath? Are you over the Motherships? Are you just like giving up on them coming out with a palette that you're really gonna like these days? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, click the thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye guys.